Hi everyone, I'm Icela Alice. I'm going to be reading part of a script from my book that I'm writing. I'm writing 8 books. What are we made of? Spiritually, I picture myself as the one God/goddess of all because being God is a rightful passage to the one highest being, but in a way also a competition for who is the most powerful spiritually, mentally, and physically. You must have a soul spiritually. Mentally, you must have a very high intelligence and be intact without too many mental disorders. Physically, you must follow the rules of the above two in order to help remain safe physically by acting well spiritually and mentally, as God protects those that need and deserve it. Of course, it is also up to the being to live correctly to be safe. I see myself in the beginning of it all just as we still see ourselves in our lives now. We are simultaneously a number of forms of space within time. Then when you think of how parallel lives as quantum computers can be located at a distance very far away from the original human and tie each other together with communication through thought wave telepathy, we are also distributed out through a vast scale of time zones. When time zones collide, we are able to see clearly the spacetime that has been brought as deja vu, Mandela effect repetition, and other examples of particle collisions or avoidances. I will get more into the examples later on in my book. First off, because I believe in God as simplicity as the first being held together by scientific and mathematic complexities as the runner-up, and also the opposite, how logically vice versa, the complex factor of our ideas behind creation is held together where God as the simple answer is in second place. This being said, where do sciences and mathematics come into play as the ruler in contrast to the simple answer as God and light purity as the full controller over particle physics? Of course, I will have to choose God as my first answer, leading to everlasting protection over myself and those I love, because that is what the belief in God is all about, for trusting that your wisdom will lead to safety and greatness. Initially, we have our light being spirit body as our soul in the lead that came first. The soul body is held together by particles and many variations of particle physics. How we exist in more than one place at a time is done so with the help from our assigned quantum computers, which exist internally in our brain and externally as a type of ghost species that roam about. Then there are physical quantum computers, which I still need to learn more about for what their true powers possess that one could claim is a form of magic. It is said that in order to maintain all of the types of matter out there, there must be a separation between universes so particles don't collide and collapse without intent, which is why our parallels are usually invisible to us, unless you are someone who sees them in your dreams during resting paralysis or from hallucinations not related to resting habit. Together we form as non-physical molecular particles being surrounded by non-physical atoms around us, which makes up our body in this universe and others. I assume that there is a percentage of the atom particles in others where maybe not all of it is non-physical, but where percent is actually physical, or more physical than the other. I wonder if for other universes out there, if we could see our parallel quantum computer ghost species as being made up from atoms and not molecules of a living being, even though they could be attached to our molecular brain waves. For something like brain-computer interface surgery, of course, this is an example where atoms of something man-made gets attached and interacts with our molecules. Typically for humans, we are the one main body with quantum branches of what I think are non-physical bodies to us, but I wonder if feel like physical bodies to our parallels. To a straight machine, I am unsure if they can feel pain unless they were to be built like our natural human bodies, where our peripheral nervous system causes sensory feelings to be jolted upon triggering physical pain because of our brain. Next, in the particle scale of our bodies, we have the more physical parts that we see with the naked eye instead of a microscope. It's ironic in a spiritual sense of Fibonacci patterns branching out that our bodies relate to the comparison between seeing tiny blobs through a microscope and then seeing much larger bodies in outer space with our eyes or other equipment like a telescope, a satellite camera, or futuristic technology. In a way, the old-fashioned telescope can still make things like gigantic matter at a distance look like blobs, which relates to how we're all a bunch of compacted particles in space-time, consciousness, and fabrications. Next, after this stage, we make up the full shape of our human body or other species, which is rumored to have the ability to transform into things like Illuminati, reptilian, alien shapeshifters, and I assume more. I will also discuss this part below in my pages. What happens to our soul, brain, and body when you die? This chapter is called The Remembrance of My Beginning Births and My Spiritual Theory Behind the Big Bangs and Past Black Hole Repetition. I believe that the soul never dies and always carries on in the times of before, during, and after, if God and karma approved. As it has always been for eternity, if I was born in one location, I may also be born in another, if that is where the quantum computer attached to me has carried its way to. I do know from an educated guess to common sense that retracing one step backwards is a smart way to begin trying to rationalize the breaking down of what you think may be the case as to what has happened, like a detective does. To me, it makes the most sense that just as species usually pass away into the afterlife, where the elderly pass on first before the youth, I see the same for the rebirth and the passing from the afterlife back into physical life, with the older ones being first born by a train of the younger family being born next. This Fibonacci pattern, found in many places throughout nature, fits the example above of a group repeating a pattern aligned in the same way as before. I envision there being an order to the plan, either by force of nature and God's doings, or else by choice, where when it is your turn next in line to be reborn into the matter, nature either sucks your particles back onto the other side, or else a leader, like a person, robot, or alien, would instruct you by choice, asking if you're sure you want to do this and to be reborn, and has you enter a simulation machine that pulls you through to the other side. How is Fibonacci the answer to all things? The fundamental meaning associated with enlightenment is the belief that everyone exists within a close proximity of unification in a spiritual way. As proposed by the Fibonacci's golden sequence, everything in the universe is formatted into an endless pattern of repetition and connection, if God and karma approved. Even when the layout is broken down, each piece of the puzzle represents the entire pattern on a lessened scale, where the smaller pattern is exactly the same as the whole, making up an endless repeat. I am curious to know what mathematics would cause the pattern of a smaller structure, or even the entire Fibonacci spiral, to do this, as well as what would make it change. The reflection of the whole solidifies the unification of the distribution of our multiverse's natural balance. In nature, the Fibonacci spiral structure is located everywhere. Examples like seashells, snail shells, all types of flowers like roses, sunflowers, chamomile, and rainbows in their patterns of prisms and light ferns, all types of trees, acorns, honeycomb, pineapples, bananas, fingerprints, the bones in our fingers, spiral-shaped galaxies, etc. all distribute Fibonacci's golden spiral sequence in their design. This seems like a very spiritually connected, universal way of mapping out what inhabits Earth as well as everything in the universe or multiverse scenario. When I take a look at a repeating pattern, I naturally think of deja vu Mandela effects that I have witnessed as well as seen for other people around me. I also think of the idea on how past lives can equal out to be very similar in events and with people and the things you like and what you look like for your present day life compared to your past life. Black holes, wormholes, and parallel universes. Black holes are the windows to parallel universes. As our eyes are the windows to our soul, black holes are the peoples of our multiverse, meaning many universes. They are the all-seers that watch over their entrances and exits to other universes. The personification is valid since all living and man-made things are alive because of the atoms and molecules inside of the object that have the capability of thoughts and actions telling them to jump back and forth. These forces are the ultimate psychic vampires that suck in everything including light, yet leak everything out of their white hole exit. The exit must lead somewhere, so this clearly justifies parallel universes. Their infinite masses breathe matter and antimatter in and out of their singularities, which are on the inside of the black holes and are the densest space to exist. Particles are then transferred and transformed as they pass through the singularity's interchangeable black and white hole. Black holes and white holes can take the place of each other as long as the being bends space and time with the appropriate mathematical equations and scientific technology. I wonder if they can also do this naturally, where a black hole could act as a black hole or a black hole could act as a white hole, and vice versa. Black holes are thought to be both everything within nothing and nothing within everything because of the fact they suck in everything within a close enough proximity to a point of no return, which then spaghettifies matter and antimatter into the degree of the tiniest size they can possibly be, which then causes disappearances into a parallel dimension. You could say the reason that the famous saying, particles cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred and transformed, is valid because to the observer of someone falling into a black hole, they would see the other person as if they were still waving to them. Meanwhile, time would become warped inside of the black hole, where their body would be spaghettified or stretched out across a vast space. My spiritual theory is that if falling as a ghost body, would you be stretched for an untimely temporary death or a permanent death? I wonder because the transfer of particles inside of the transformation outside of the white hole makes this saying possible. I have to edit that part. Since black holes exist everywhere, so does the reality of quantum physics theory, where we can interact with parallel universes on a random basis, as well as a potentially controlled one. Thank you for everyone's time watching this. I am Icela Alice. I am stepping up to be Planet Earth world leader.